Today, my guest is 𝗚𝗿cie𝘂𝘁𝘁. I should have
Kleiner.
asked you that before. Kleiner. That's why we edit. Today, my guest is Noah Kleiner, and we only just met a few days ago, but Noah has a really cool story to share. Noah, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me. Grateful to be here.
Yay. I am so curious about a lot of things. So, but you have a business called Equinox Climbing, right? Is that what that's what it's called? I was gonna switch my screen back, but I'm checking my memory too. But so you teach climbing, rock and ice.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy pants to me, but very cool at the same time.
Yeah. We do rock and ice climbing and mostly based in Camden, but we go up to Acadia and I was on Katahdin a bunch this winter and in Grafton a little bit and some in New Hampshire and I climbed in Vermont. I guided in Vermont a little bit too this year. So
Is that with clients or is that just yourself?
with clients all over the place. Yeah. Yeah, most of that was with clients. There was a little bit of self climbing in there, but it was mostly with clients this year. Yeah, I took a course. I took a American Mountain Guide Association ice instructor exam, which is 5 days of ice climbing. So that was like a little bit of personal stuff, but it's mostly for it's all the same. it's all
Okay.
it's all
So
like
when
personal,
when
but all
when you say self when you're self climbing, Noah, you're not like self. You have someone with you, right?
yeah. I always climb with somebody else. Yeah,
Okay, good deal. All
yeah.
right, good answer. And so you learn you also I'm gonna just totally flub this. Um, you went to the College of the Atlantic, which I'm today years old. The cool thing to say is when I learned about this. I did a summer class. I did some summer classes through College of the Atlantic a few years ago when they were talking about food because I'm a food person. But you went to college, like 4 years of college at College of the Atlantic, and I literally did not know about that until just talking to you. But you did no, you did more than climbing. But you said climbing was in your orientation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my
tell us
orientation.
about College of the Atlantic, please.
Yeah. So it's a 4 year degree. Everybody gets a degree in human ecology, which is the study of how humans interact with their environment. Um, and kind of underneath that umbrella, everybody kind of gets to create their own major. A lot of people go on to like grad school and more education, but for me, it was just an amazing opportunity to be able to like learn what I want to learn in life. Right. There's like 400 kids that go there, maybe a little over now. So it's one of the smallest colleges I ever heard of. I think there's a couple other ones, but it's a really small college. When I was in high school, I I don't know, I just kind of gravitated towards that school, like the community and like, oh, sorry, all of the stuff that goes into it was like just I don't know, I really enjoyed it. And I applied to there in Unity. And College Atlantic was cheaper at the time. So I went there and just in-state tuition sort of stuff. So
Hear
that was
that?
a big decision. Part of the decision. But I really got a ton out of it. Like I studied so many different avenues. Climbing was like the underlying tone the whole time. I mean, outdoor stuff since I was a kid was like always the underlying tone, right? My dad was a Maine guide and my mom was an art teacher. So those
Oh,
like
okay.
things sort of play out in my adult life, right?
All
Like
right. It's like
I
in
love
your blood.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So college was sweet. It allowed me to like study. I did a bunch of stuff with computers. I did a bunch of stuff with photography. I did a bunch of stuff. I built a vegetable car. I built a canoe. I like solo paddled some canoe rivers and streams. And then my senior project was a series of four adventures. And I documented it through photography and did like a bunch of blogs and stuff. So everybody's senior project at COA is like archived, so you can go and see anybody's senior project there, which is pretty cool. So if you
Oh,
want to
that
see
is
my
really
senior
cool.
project, you can go check it out. I don't know how good it is, but
Totally. Yeah, send me a link. That's amazing.
yeah.
And so, but you said that you went to school for music.
Yeah, that's how I started off. Like I was really into jazz, saxophone. So I was like, that's what I went in, was like, oh, I want to study this, and then that abandoned that.
Super cool.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me that you always, and it's interesting to me because I have personal experience. So you said that you were always climbing, and I
Yeah.
just, it's so interesting. I guess I just don't have that. But my father-in-law always tells me that my husband was always climbing things, but my husband's grandfather, so my father-in-law's dad, would like climb radio towers.
Oh, cool.
And so my husband is an arborist now, but he was
Oh,
like
cool.
climbing flagpoles and climbing trees and whatever
Yeah.
he could climb when he was a kid. And his dad was just like, this kid. But now here he is. And same with you. I don't know if, well, your dad was he was a Maine guide, you said. So he was
Yeah.
probably like, oh, that's cool. It's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be
Yeah.
a climbing instructor someday.
Yeah. There's this like memory from my childhood of that. I don't know if you've ever been to the alewives in uh
Damascata?
𝗚𝗿cie𝘂𝘁𝘂, yeah.
I
But
haven't.
on You haven't, yeah. Well, it's really cool. You should go.
I
And
should.
Mother's Day is when it always happens. So we'd always go on Mother's Day, and there's this rock on the right, and it has this big like metal spike in the middle of it. And I remember us climbing that like over and over and over again, like him helping us up and climbing up to the top and then sliding back down and like doing that over and over again. Um,
Were you like covered in fish?
no, there's like we never really. I mean, sometimes we pulled them out of the water, but mostly we just like looked at them. Like
Okay.
sometimes we get down and you can like grab them, but not we didn't really do that. But
Aren't they tiny fish?
they're pretty big. They're like fish. They have to swim upstream. So yeah, they're pretty big. They're not like herring or anything. They're not tiny, but
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you were climbing the stake thing that's in the rock.
yeah. Yeah, it was like you kind of scrambling up the rock and then grabbing onto the stake thing and then pulling ourselves up. That was like I was pretty young probably then. Then I remember climbing at the Y a little bit when I was a little bit older. Um, just like going and I think I took a class there or something, which
Mm.
I think like one of my good friends taught, but who knows?
Right.
So there's like this guy, Alan Reese, who's in town here, and he's been around for like ever and helped start the climbing wall at the Y. And like I'm sure he like taught the class that I was in, but I don't know.
Oh.
He's like so. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of how it
Okay.
all began. And
Okay.
yeah,
So you started out climbing a lot, and then you went to College of the Atlantic that really encouraged it and taught you what else about it? Because there's more to climbing than just climbing, just
yeah,
exercise. You learned a lot about that.
yeah. Like um, I think I went into like that orientation trip was like a week long climbing sort of adventure. And I remember distinctly going up this like multi-pitch climb, and getting to the top with my friend. My like there's the guide was leading and we were following, right? And getting up to the top of this thing, and it was like a chimney. So it was like climbing the door frame in your house, but we were like, 200 feet in the air. And the wind was like blowing up beneath me, and like it was like terrifying. I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Right? And but thinking about that experience, like that was kind of a game changer. Like being able to do that and then feeling the the sense of accomplishment and like, oh my gosh, I just like got over this mountain, right? And how much like I wanted to do it again. Like after that experience, I was like, then you rappel down, right? Which is like one of the longest rappels. It's like it's a full like 40-meter rappel, so over 100 feet.
Holy.
And for like, you know, the my 18-year-old self, like it was cool. It was like, oh, I want to do this. Right. But then
Wow.
throughout my life, like I was challenging myself in that way, and it was ego driven, right? It was this sense of like, well, look at me, like look at the thing I did, right? But um as I started to like do some of this stuff for me, like internal work sort of stuff, I recognized that that challenge space, right, was putting me in that realm of having to work with all of those internal processes um, in a way that I didn't really understand at the time or like comprehend, like why it was hard for me to walk up to the cliff and climb something hard, like why on this day could I not climb that, but on the next day I could, right? Um, I could never figure out why that was,
Huh.
right? Like, and then I started like working with those feelings, right? So there's this thing that I do now, or I did for a long time. I don't do it as much anymore, but I would say trust my feet. Like when you put your foot on the wall, it's like hard to trust that, right? Like I have to trust this rubber on this
Right.
rock, like hold me, right? So I started saying just like trust my feet, trust my feet, trust my feet, right? And it was changing the mindset. It was changing that I can't do this to like, oh, I got this. Like, right? Over and over again, repeat that repetitive sort of like affirmation. It was an affirmation.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't understand, like I was just doing it because I was like, oh, this will work. Like,
Right.
like
I'm
I'm
gonna
just like,
die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die is not really helpful.
no, yeah, yeah. Like I was thinking like I would always think about the fear of falling, right? Like when I'm leading, like I could fall really far down the cliff, right? And I was
Right.
always dwelling on that possibility,
What
like,
if?
oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this? Like, think about how relatable that is to the rest of your life, right? Like, think of the
100%.
parallels, like all of the fear that we see, like even in climate change, like we are so scared of what's going to happen, right? But really, we have to be in this present, like moment, right? And change that mindset to I can stand on that foot, right? I can do this. Like we got this. We're gonna do it, right? And that is like that's such a huge cognitive shift, right? Where it's like it's relating, it's to the moment, right? It's like, okay, I can change this right now. I can change that mindset in this moment. I've made a different choice in this moment to succeed or to try, at least
Mm.
try, right? Like we got to just try. Like
That's
if we fail,
beautiful.
if
Wow.
we fail, that's okay. Like life is full of failures. Like things fall apart all the time. Like that is, it's like,
Failure's
uh,
not necessarily the worst thing, but not trying is
yeah.
definitely
I
gonna
mean,
fail.
the only thing holding us back from trying is fear, right? And if we don't, if we put that, if we like,
Paralyze ourselves
and
in fear.
all fear is,
Yeah.
and all that fear is just, it's a a creation of the mind. Right? It's not like it's not necessarily like a physical object, right? It's not like a bear, right? Like a bear is scary, right? Because it's a bear, right? But then fear, when we think about the fear that goes into that, right? I mean, I can not be scared of a bear. Like people do that, right? Or like people wrestle things, right? But that's just them, like how they deal with the fear, right? Um,
Right.
I think
Right.
that climbing, yeah, is like the physical ability to overcome that fear in a lot of ways, right? Like, oh, I'm scared I'm gonna fall. oh, but I can just lean back on this rope and I'll be okay, right? Like it's putting that into perspective, right? Like the perspective piece, right? Like when I move my over here and I look at it at a different angle, it's like, oh, you got this.
Totally.
Like the two things I say to people before they start climbing are, don't forget to smile, don't forget to breathe, right?
Don't forget to smile, huh?
What does smiling do?
Because someone's taking pictures?
Well, I mean, it releases endorphins, like, right? It's like a smiling, like it changes our brains. It's like proven, right?
True. When I was singing, the conductor would always say, smile. It brings your pitch up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I always say those two things. I always say smile and breathe because it's grounding in that way, right? Like the breath is grounding, smiling is grounding, right? It's a very, like, I've also said that before I did all this stuff, and then I realized, like, afterwards I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like
That's
yeah.
so awesome. Go me. Wow, yeah, breathing is really important. I'm not a breather. I mean, I'm a breather, but when I'm exercising, I forget to breathe.
Yeah, I found that.
I'm focused on not falling on my face.
Yeah. I found that people hold their breath when they're climbing, like a lot, like everybody. And I can tell now, I can see it. I can see when somebody's holding their breath because they get a little shaky and they get a little like, like patting the rock more or like kicking their feet more, or there's that, like, it's like panicky, right? It's like,
Yep.
like being underwater, right? We get a little panicky when we're kids because we like can't breathe, right? But then as we like learn how to do that, then we get less panicky and it becomes common sense. So climbing does that, right? Like I get up on the wall and I hold my breath. But I really need to just breathe through it and relax and trust my feet. And then I keep going, right? So it's a process of like letting go in like a lot of ways, and allowing it to work out as it's supposed to be. And like for me as a guide, like that was a huge learning experience to recognize that, yeah, I can provide the experience as best I can, but I can't control what's going on for that person, right? Like I can provide the best experience that I know how to do,
Right.
but I can't force them to have a good time. Like I want them to have the best time. Like I want that for them so much. And I can try to do it as best I can. I can put you on the easiest thing and then work your way up to the hardest thing. And like that's a great way to do it. And it works really well that way. But I like during that process, like some people are like, no, I've had people be like, no, I'm done. And like that's okay. Like I'm just so proud of people for like getting up there and trying it. Like it's awesome. And like before, I would beat myself up about that. I'd be like, oh, dang it. I like didn't do a good job because they like didn't get up the wall or they didn't try or like it's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the experience is different for everyone, but it's not even you.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I like the idea that you were saying, I mean, so many of the things that you just said were really, really good. But you were saying, it's okay if they start a little bit lower and maybe not, do the hardest thing to start. The hardest thing would be like a super victory, but they also might not be up to that. And so if they start a little bit smaller, the victory will still be had and they might get that rush that you get and want to do it again, like want to go right back up, be like, hey, I just did that, maybe next time I'll go higher.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it a lot with kids where it's like, I'll have them climb up like 6 feet, right? And be like, okay, you want to come down? And then be like, okay. And I'll just lower them back down, right? And like, that's bringing them back into their comfort zone, right? They're good on the ground, right? And like at any point climbing, you could do that, right? You go up 12 feet, you come back down. You lean on the rope, you swing around. Like a lot of kids just like want to swing around on the rope. And like, that's great. Like swing around on the rope. Like that's building trust, right? Like we have to trust the system. It's such a abstract thing, right? Like climb a rock. Like when we actually think about that, it's like, you want me to do what? Like,
Wait a
and like,
second.
yeah.
This is
Um,
not a video game.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and I mean, to that point, what I was just sort of joking about is, the fact that you're working with young people as well, and people in general, and just teaching them to respect nature and to appreciate it, because man, if you're out there and you're just, I'm not going to say dangling, but dangling, I'm not going to think it in my head, dangling or just hanging from a rope or trusting your feet. Oh my gosh, like there's so much out there and it's so unfamiliar to a lot of people. And I think that what you're doing is really important to teach people, really, I mean, to respect and appreciate that, because it's it is unfamiliar, because it's just really important, and I'm sure that you could speak to that better than me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what I've found is like, um, the relationship to our environment is so important. And I think as a human race, we've kind of lost this connection to the earth. Like, I am the earth, or like, I am the universe, or I am connected to something, right? And climbing for me, and I think for a lot of people, like, is that connection, is that like, it creates, instead of me and it, right? Like I think like there's a lot of like, we got to fix the earth right now. We got to fix it, right? But reality is like, earth's going to be there. Like the earth was here way before us. And the earth is going to be here for like eons after us, right? Um but how can we like be a part of the earth, right? Like,
Mm.
am I part of the earth? Like that's a question, right? Like, do we feel part of the earth? And for me, like climbing um tangibly like allows me to touch the rock, like this thousands and thousands of year old rock, right? I paddled the Grand Canyon in December of last year, or 2 years ago now.
Oh wow.
um and that was just like remarkable, right? Like, I'm like in the earth next to some of the oldest rock that's like in the world that we can see.
Mm.
um and like just that connection, right? Like to see that and like be aware of that, um that's like a connection to the environment. So, but then being present with it, right? Like how do I come out of this like um zone of, oh my gosh, what is my day entail? Like, what is that other person doing? What is my like, what is this? What is that? Like all of those things that we think about throughout the day, right? Like all of that chaos that's within our head. Like, yeah, meditation does that, but it takes a lot of meditation to get to climbing.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, you
Climbing,
can't
like,
get much closer than you and the rock.
yeah, like that fear, right? Like
Nothing else
climbing,
you need to think about.
I've had people describe it as like, "Whoom, I'm here. Like, what do I got to do? Where do I have to stand? Like, what do I have to do?" Right? And it's like it puts all of that chaos in our brains and just like puts it on the back burner. And then we're focused on the task and what we have to do, which is like move up the wall. Um, and if I can bring somebody into that zone, like I'll see kids like, this is the most amazing thing. I'll have that kid, that ADHD kid that's like running around being a squirrel, like a total squirrel. I'll put him in a harness, put him up on the wall, silence. Silence. Like, think about
Wow.
that. Like, think
Right.
about what's going
When
on with
else
that
is
kid,
that kid feeling
right?
so in tune?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then he's up on the wall and be like, "Hey, how's it going? Like, do you see that cloud?" And like some of them won't even talk to me. They'll just be like,
I'm focused
"I'm doing the thing." Like,
for sure.
um, and for those kids, I think it's just like it's amazing to provide that experience for a young kid to be able to focus that way, right? Like, I think a lot of kids these days are be like, there's so much out there, right? There's so much information. Life is going so fast for them. like technology is just like, it's intense. Like it is intense. It's intense for me. And I'm like, I grew up with a lot of it, right? Like I had cell phones and I mean, like it's intense for me and I need to disconnect sometime.
Right.
Um, but they haven't divided that self at all. So to get up on the wall and like shut all that off and be able to be focused on one task is like it's like a gift. Like there are kids that will just come back over and over and over again because I think they just need that. They need that connection, right? That
Sure.
connection to or that connection to self. Like really
Hmm.
that's what that is, right? That's a
Right.
connection to the true self, right? And so um yeah, like that connection to true self, like I can see it happening, right? When they get up on the wall and all their friends are down below cheering them on, right? Supporting them, right?
Right.
Like supporting them on their own challenge. Like what?
When does that
Like
happen in life?
think about other sports. Like
Right.
think about other sports where
All the
we're a team
competition.
and we're like competing, right? But we're putting in one kid up on the wall and it's like, go, you can do it. We got you. Like, good job. You went up 5 feet. Like, awesome. Like, that's just like, I don't know. I don't think there's many things like that
Yeah.
I can think of. Like, there's other things like surfing I can think of is like very in the moment that way. Um, but where the whole team is supporting you and everybody's like I went to Salt Pump uh like a couple weeks ago. And just like looking around the room, I was like, oh my gosh, there's like, there's tiny kids here. And then there's the like 80-year-old man. Or there's
That's
like,
awesome.
the like 40 year old like woman. There's like, I don't know. It's just like everybody's there and everybody's enjoying their time on doing the thing. And it's just like everybody's accepted and we're all challenging ourselves in our own unique ways and there's no competition. It's like it's me versus the wall, right? And me versus my own brain, right?
Right.
To get to overcome that fear, that like egoic self, right? Like that's what's going on. It's like I remember a lot of times I would get up on the wall and be like, "Oh my gosh, what do my friends think? What do my friends think? What are they thinking? Are they watching me? Oh, I'm failing." And I would get so angry at myself. I would like beat myself up because I was angry that the perception of what they saw of me was not the thing that I actually wanted to be, right? Right? Like what was I thinking, right? But then like but that was what I was like more conscientious of others, the other, right?
Right.
Rather than myself in that moment and the experience that I was having, right?
For
So
sure.
um it's such a it's such an interesting like uh process to like provide that experience and like allow kids to learn that on their own, right?
Mm.
Like not even like I don't even need to say all the stuff that I just said, right? Like, yeah, I'm describing my
Sure.
inner dialogue with it, but all I have to do is like teach them about the thing, be like, build trust within that first 30 minutes or like over a week, right? And then get them on the wall and like watch it, right? I've seen kids that like no confidence at all walk in like and then walk out like 2 years later, 3 years later, and they're like totally different kids. They're confident, they're able to like put themselves out there and like be that true self, right? Right.
That's
Uh,
awesome. That's
and
amazing.
like a lot of the work I've done is like the way out is in, right? Like I need to like do the work internally before I can like save everybody else, right? And
Sure.
I didn't understand like what like how much climbing already does that. Like it already does that in such a concrete like way. That's like pretty remarkable. It's like pretty remarkable. Um, and so for me, it was like, yeah, climbing was the instrument or the mode of transportation, I guess. um, that allowed me to see all that. Um, but now, like, the relationship that I have with climbing is so much respect. Like, and then I'm able to hand that, like, I'm able to like hand that gift to somebody else. Like,
Mm,
there are people in my life where their life, like, I've given them climbing for the rest of their lives. Like, I've given them, like, not just climbing though, like all that stuff I just talked about, right? Like the ability to focus in the moment and like put all that other junk out the window
right.
and to be present with it, right? Yeah, like, yeah, there are other ways to get there, but climbing is such a like uh it's just a concrete way, I think, especially for kids. Like, it's attractive, like it's fun, it's adventurous, it's like um yeah, it's really interesting. I love it. I think
But
it's
there's
like,
so much more to it than just the it's more than even just the challenge or the exercise. And that's really cool. It's really cool that you just put that out for us. I appreciate that.
thanks.
And so with your business, 𝗏𝗏, you're doing like climbing, like getaways, climbing trips, and you teach climbing. And do you do photography as well as part of the package, or is that just for fun that you're taking pictures?
Um, I mean, so like what I do is like I do full and half day ice and rock climbing trips is the majority of my work. But I work with like a lot of other organizations. So like I run all the climbing on Hurricane Island Science and Leadership Foundation. I've worked with Outward Bound. Um, I work with like some local kids. There's this group called Sundog. We work with them and they do like after school rock climbing. We did like a February ice climbing camp with them.
That's so cool.
um, there's like those sort of vendors, if you will, like they still work with me, and like those are sort of like the bread and butter sort of thing. And then I do a lot of the full days and half days, and then some overnight stuff. Like, oh, I went to Katahdin several different times this winter, or I'll do rock climbing up there. There's rock climbing up there too.
Hmm.
So, or go to Acadia for full days or half days. It's a lot of like summer stuff. But then I've started doing like longer trips. So I'll be going to Greece in the fall.
Shut
Uh,
up.
yeah, doing to this island called Kalymnos, and we'll be climbing for a week, probably around Thanksgiving, it sounds like. Um, so that sort of stuff has come into the realm.
Not gonna say no to that.
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So that's kind of what my business does, I guess. Yeah, and it's growing. Like, I'm gonna have 7 guides this year, which is like ridiculous. Um, and we're
So
running summer
cool.
camp. We're like running a summer camp for kids, um, which is like crazy, but it seems to be working.
How many
And
kids do you do camp for?
there'll be 4 weeks in July. It's every week in July. And there's 12 kids each week, hopefully, if I get 12 kids. Who knows? But yeah, and then we run a program with the local school. All the summer school kids come climbing with me from Rockport, I think. Camp Rockport. So they'll all be climbing with me.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so yeah, it's a cool business. I'm grateful for it.
So, folks who are listening, if you have kids and you need something fun for them to do this summer, hit up 𝗏𝗏.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And so on the side of like not even climbing related, you said that you live off grid
Yeah,
and you're in
yeah,
the Camden area?
yeah. I live in Lincolnville, and I've lived in a 12 by 16 off the grid cabin. That I've been here for 10 years, which is kind of crazy. But it's been a journey. Started living here and there was like gas lights, wood stove, no fridge. Now I have a solar system, which is sweet, and I have a fridge, and I have a stove that's inside, which is like amazing. So
So you
like
can
that's
cook inside when it's really cold out
yeah.
or like
Yeah.
slushing.
Yeah, exactly. It's so nice.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
But you
Um,
said you go to the bathroom outside.
yeah, I still go to the bathroom outside. Yeah. Bucket system. Bucket system's awesome. High praise for the bucket system. I don't know if anybody out there uses the bucket system, but it's
Awesome. And so, how did you? I want to back this up a little bit. So, or maybe a lot. How you said that you were always climbing when you were a kid, and so you decided that, and but you wanted to be a musician, and so you went to College of the Atlantic. But I'm curious about like, did you just happen upon this cabin that you're living in, and you were like, that's a fun thing. I'll try that. Or were you totally focused, like, I'm going to go off grid and this is what I'm going to do? How did that all pan out?
yeah, that's a great story. So it's I live in this cabin that's close to this camp that I worked at for a long time called Tanglewood 4-H Camp and Learning Center.
Okay.
And the folks that started it, they um have this land and they have a cabin that they built before they built their big house. So they're like good old family friends. So my internship at college was at Tanglewood, and I lived in the cabin when I was interning at Tanglewood.
Okay.
Um, and that's kind of how I like found out about it and like figured out that I could do it. And then I ended up moving back here in like 2011 or something, 2010 maybe. Oh, maybe it's more than 10 years. Anyways, so yeah, and then I kind of like went away and came back. I like moved up to the island in Acadia, came back, moved to Colorado, came back, and like it just has been this spot that sort of grounds me in a way, I guess, or like
It's like
I
a
don't know how to,
magnetic thing. You're just drawn to it.
yeah,
You,
there's some sort of connection, like that 16-year-old self definitely like likes to go down to Tanglewood and like, or 14-year-old, whatever I was, 16. Um, it's that connection is still there, I think. And like what it gave me, like
sure.
definitely gave me this like identity, I guess. I was able to like develop who I was, um, who I am now, I guess, um, at that place, and was given the opportunity to just be. Um, so I think there's a connection there, right? Yeah. Yeah. This spot has a lot to do with that. And the off the grid thing plays into that, just like what experience I had in college, and like sustainability was just like the buzzword that was being thrown around in 2006, right? And so I mean it was like it's been a journey to live here, and now it feels like a home in a lot of ways, like
Awesome.
I have things in place that it functions. So um that's been a huge journey. But yeah, that all of those pieces now feel really solid. So that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. That is, I love that. Um, do you have a dog?
I do.
You
Yeah.
do?
I have a dog named Cedar. Yeah. Yeah. He's
That's
my best.
cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, good. You're not alone in that, in your off-grid place. It's good to have
No.
someone with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So Noah, this has been so cool. I've learned so much from you just in the last few days, just looking at checking out your website and talking to you before recording, and then during this. I feel like I'm not sure why you approached me, and I'm just really glad that you did, because I didn't see that coming. But when I say the word sustainability, what does that mean to you? What is sustainability to you?
Yeah. I think for me, it just means a choice. Um, like, what do I get to choose right now, right? Um, and sometimes I don't always pick the sustainable thing, right? But I can have compassion for myself around that. Um, because it's not it's a journey, right? Like, I think for me,
Absolutely.
it's like, yeah, I get to choose certain things that help, but I don't always have to live that. Like, I think it's like there's a lot of purity within that, right? Like, am I the most sustainable person in the world? No, but
Right.
I do as much as I can with the cards that I was given, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think sustainable for me depends on the day, honestly. Like, some days I love lying on the couch and watch TV, right? Like, but other days I'm out there like changing kids' lives and changing that mindset. And like, I think that's the one thing that's really like changing that mind, right? Like that relationship to sense of place and connection. I think that's been one thing that I've been working on a lot more, is just like, how do I change that rootedness, right? Where I'm like, I can see the cloud, I can feel the earth, I can understand that I'm connected, right? And
Mm.
that I've been reading this book on awe. I don't remember. I just got it. And it's awesome. But it's about that connection, right? Like that, holding the kid's foot in my hand and being like, wow, like this is remarkable. Or like picking up that pine cone, right? Like so I think that though, like that piece has been like really something I'm super hyper aware of like that change
Hmm.
seems more tangible than a lot of the other changes
Right.
I can
Well,
make, right?
yeah, I love that. And I love that that you're just talking about like a mindset. Like it literally is a choice that we're changing our minds and we are, making the choice every day whether we're, what we're going to do. And unless you're climbing rocks and your only thought is to trust your feet. But I mean, on a daily basis, are we gonna eat junk food, or are we going to have a banana, or whatever? Like, there are so many choices that we make, and it's all, we get to do it every day. So
Yeah.
heck, lay down on couch and watch TV one day. You live off grid and you're changing lives on a regular basis. You do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so Noah, if somebody is like totally jazzed about this and so inspired and wants to send their kid to camp with you, or they want to come have a climbing experience with you, how would they find you?
Yeah. Equinox Camden, or where's our Equinox, where's our Instagram handle? Equinox Climbing is our Instagram handle. Yeah, those are kind of the best avenues. You can find us on Facebook too. Equinox Guiding Service.
Is it
All
guide or guiding service?
guiding, yeah.
Guiding, okay. And
All of
so
those
that's
in
Facebook
Google.
or website.
Yeah. 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 Uh
And
yeah.
I'll put all that in the show notes as well. That's and Yeah, check out the website. It's very cool. And this is Noah's business, and he's got people, he's got other people hanging out with him, which is, they've got great stories. So, thank you again. I appreciate this so much. I love getting to learn about people, and you have such a great story to share. And again, I'm not quite sure why you reached out to me, but I'm so thrilled that you did. Um, and I hope we cross paths again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be here. Thanks for making it happen. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And